I'm making this video basically really to test the new microphone that I just purchased. I just upgraded from the Blue Snowball Ice microphone to the Blue Yeti microphone. And from what I've heard, which is funny because I heard it after I bought it, I've heard that the Yeti is pretty much the best microphone that there is when it comes to podcasting on a computer. Now, I know there are more advanced professional microphones out there, but I heard this is pretty much the most affordable and this is pretty much the best one that you could pretty much get if you're just, doing regular podcasts. So this is kind of like a test to see how my voice comes out. I've had a very long day, so I'm not going to make this video long at all. So the point of this video is to simply talk about dividend stocks again. And as you can see, Ford announced higher than expected earnings, reinstated their dividend. Now, Ford had discontinued their dividend because of the events of coronavirus 2020 onwards till about now. And then because of the fact that the supply chain issues got so bad, basically their their sales went through the roof, basically, just like everybody else's. And it became easy. Everybody's selling stuff. It's like if you're making cars the size of the Ford Explorer, the size of that Ford Expedition, the Lincolns, everything's selling right now. The Mustang Mach-E, I'm seeing a lot of those on the road. Those are selling very well. So basically, Ford said that they are seeing higher than expected earnings, so they reinstated the dividend. So as you can see, it says Ford announced in their earnings report that they brought in $33.2 billion in automotive revenue and $2 billion in adjusted earnings, beating the expectations of analysts. Chip shortages, supply chain issues have impacted the entire industry, automotive, but pretty much they've affected everything. The chip shortages and supply chain issues have affected everything, even if it wasn't directly related to electronics. The supply chain issues have, for example, I was out with someone. We were looking at, what was it called? We were looking at paint today at Sherwin-Williams Paint. I believe it's called Sherwin-Williams. Like originally I was going to go to Benjamin Moore, but I ended up going to Sherwin-Williams, and they are charging a 4% supply chain, basically a fee. So they're charging an extra 4% because of the supply chain issues. And I saw it on the screen. It literally said 4% was being charged. So yeah, this supply chain thing is a big problem. And that's on top of the other problems that we have, like higher energy costs and whatnot. But to make a long story short, it said Ford has once again raised its full year operating earnings expectations from between $9 billion and $10 billion up to between $10.5 and $11.5 billion. Now, the whole gist of this story, I'm not going to read this whole thing because you can read this yourself. But the bottom line is they reinstated the dividend. So what I did is I went to my dividend list, because what I did is I put together a list of all of the dividend stocks I hold. Ford was not on it, so I had to add Ford on it because they've reinstated the dividend. Ford is paying a 1.99% dividend, as you can see. Now, I have held on to Ford for a long time. I didn't even sell it when coronavirus hit and everything crashed. I've had Ford since it was less than $2 back from the bailout era. My issue is when I buy stocks, I usually don't sell them unless I think something is wrong and I should sell them. So my entire family basically bought Ford during the bailout era because we knew that the government, which is not supposed to be operating this way, but we knew that the government was never going to allow Ford to fail. It's kind of like what I was explaining to you about the airlines. Boeing and the airlines, the American air carriers, the government was never going to allow those to fail simply because that's a part of the military-industrial complex. So Boeing especially was never going to be allowed to fail. Lockheed Martin was never going to be allowed to fail, which is the reason why I have pushed y'all to go towards the airlines. If you'd gotten into the airlines when I first told you about it, you'd have gotten in dirt cheap And as you can see, we'll look at that in a minute. Yes, the numbers have risen. They've come back. But again, I make these dividend lists because this way, when somebody asks me, oh, well, what's the best way for me to start my portfolio? I can just easily copy paste this entire list and I can show them, well, this is the dividend list that I hold. These are all of the things that I hold. And in my opinion, if you're just starting out and you're building a portfolio, the easiest thing you can go after is the banks and the oil companies, oil slash gas. Because if you go after the banks and the oil companies, pretty much you are insured companies that are pretty much paying you a dividend either way. So when you put that money in there, this isn't about getting rich quick. This is about putting money into kind of like a glorified savings account and your money giving you a capital gain that you wouldn't have gotten due to the fact that the banks are only paying 0.05% interest in most cases. Now, most of you, unless you're, packing a lot of cash, a lot of people really aren't saving so much money that they are worried about the interest rate. I have enough money in the bank where I demand that my interest rate be higher. Unfortunately, the banks aren't paying high interest rates. So when you're putting your money into stocks, the bottom line is buy low, sell high. But in my opinion, if you're buying low, you're doing great. But if it's paying a dividend, you don't really have to sell it. The longer it sits there, the more money you're going to get out of it for the most part, just because it's sitting there. When you finally decide, oh yeah, I want to sell it, I want to retire, I'm going to sell it. If you decide you need the money, well, yeah, go right on ahead and sell it. If you're the type of person who day trades and you're flipping stocks, yeah, we'll go right on ahead and sell it. If you're the type of person who wants to transfer those shares to your children because you really are doing so well that you don't need the money and you'd like to just transfer it all to your children, well, that's something you could do. And that money will sit there accumulating intergenerational wealth across your children, your children's children, as long as you don't have any drug addict kids who fuck it up. Because I've known professional people who've had some drug addict kids and they piss their money away like you wouldn't believe. And it can happen to any of us, but you got to tell your kids, listen, don't do drugs. Just because you see people smoking weed and all that stuff and doing heroin and stuff, you don't want to do any of that because that will fuck your wallet up and you don't want that to happen. So there you go. That's my dividend list right there. Now, I did tell you, I'm going to just skim over this real quickly because I said this video is not going to be long. I'm already 8 minutes in. Let me try to knock this out in 2 minutes. China, some of the stocks that I hold with China that did pay dividends before, well, we're down to 3. China life insurance is still paying 5.65. So my money that's sitting in China life insurance is paying way better than any bank could possibly be paying me for putting my money in there. As far as technology goes, I count Ford, GM, I count those as technology sectors, but I think it's important, and I've said this before, these electric vehicle companies, right now, it's the ground floor. The only one that I've purchased that's not performing right now very well, and I'm not worried about it, but in the future, I'm pretty sure it's going to pick up, is KNDI. When I got KNDI, it was doing very well. I think around, COVID caused a drop. It was $14. As you can see, it's down to the fours. I'm not worried about that because it'll come back. I'm not worried about that. Once China starts exporting those cars, those electric cars and those electric vehicles they're making, I'm not worried about it. But right now, this is the ground floor for electric vehicles. Very recently, I tried to talk you into Lucid. I showed you a video. I went to the Lucid meatpacking district in Manhattan and I showed you a video of what the car was like. It reminded me of exactly how Tesla started. Tesla started when their shares first hit the market. They were dirt cheap. Now Tesla's through the roof. Lucid, Neo, that's a Chinese brand. And then there's a new one. It's called Rivian. Rivian hit the market at $108 after their IPO. They're already at what, 122 with the market closed, but once the market opens, it's going to go right up to 125. It may keep on building. Right now, Rivian's making electric trucks. And as you know, Tesla, Elon Musk said he was selling $1 billion or something like that. So Tesla dropped almost instantly from 1243 down to 1060. Now, if you bought Tesla when I told you to buy it back when they were doing the split, you're still up. If you continue to hold and you don't panic, when Tesla opens up the supercharger network to all the rest of these people with these electric cars, you're going to thank me. You're going to thank me. I appreciate the people who follow me and they're like, oh man, I bought oil when you told me to and I'm way up and all this. I really appreciate those people. Just like I was telling people, I warned you, I told you, listen, get Logitech, get Roblox, get AMD. AMD was $50 or less when I was talking about it. The shit is like 122 right now. It's like what? It's way up there. It's 148. God damn. I thought it was 122. I wasn't even paying attention. Some of my, like a lot of my money, I don't even look at it. I try not to look at it because I don't like to get panicked into selling. But Microsoft, I told everybody, I was like, yo, dudes, get Microsoft. I told you to get AMD. I told you. I said AMD, Microsoft, NVIDIA. I told them. I tried to tell them. So I said, get the oil stocks. Get those oil stocks. Get these banks. Get these banks to pay these dividends. And that's another thing. Ford reinstated their dividend. Just because a company is not paying a dividend right now doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't buy into it if you believe in their product, because they might change their thing. They might change it and pay a dividend later. So just because they're not paying it now doesn't mean that they're not going to possibly pay it in the future. And that also goes the other way. Just because a company's paying a dividend now doesn't mean that they might decide to drop their dividend later, especially when you're talking about COVID and something that pops up and it just knocks everybody around and they don't know what's going on. So they figure, okay, in order for us to stay profitable, we're going to have to reduce our, expenditures. We're going to have to stop paying the dividend. So this can go both ways. But the cruise lines, as you can see, those are the cruise lines. I told you to get them when they were dirt cheap. If you waited, they're up. They're way up, but the airlines are still, like, if you look at the airlines, JetBlue rose from like $8 or $9 up to $21.96. America Airlines, United Airlines, Delta. I was trying to tell you, I was like, listen, y'all need to get in on these things while they're cheap. Boeing, they make parts for all these damn planes. They make the planes. When Boeing dropped down and they were down below 176, I sounded the alarm. I said, listen, y'all need to get in on this. If y'all got the money, y'all need to get in on this. So hopefully you did. Right now, none of them are profitable. Travel has not opened up. They're not paying a dividend, but they're still cheap. They're not going anywhere because the thing about it is the government has been helping them with a little bit of welfare check, helping them stay afloat because they know that, right now travel's basically at a standstill. So international travel is at a standstill. I'm still waiting for my passport to get back so I can plan my vacation because right now I can't do anything. I'm waiting for that passport to come back with the renewal. But yeah, that's basically it. That's all I really wanted to talk about. Ford paying their dividend and these electric vehicle companies slowly rising. And they're rising here and there, but the thing about it is 5-10 years from now, you're going to wish you'd been in there. You're going to wish you'd been in there. That's all I had to really say. So, again, I'm going to listen to the feedback on this. I'm going to check out how this new mic works and see how it all works and everything. So, yeah, that's basically all I had to say, but that's my update for today. So happy Veterans Day. And if you're a veteran, thank you for your service.